Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 134. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And today, we're trying out a new series.
Maybe, hopefully.
We're trying.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. There is intent of it being a series, at least.
This series was inspired by my coworker.
Thanks, coworker.
He took the Space Marine pill after playing Space Marine 2, and then got very confused trying to buy into the actual tabletop game.
See, the key is money.
No.
No, he accepted his wallet was going to be empty, but he still didn't know how to do it.
He watched some generalist intro videos, including ones from us, which I told him was cringe.
Good.
He decided he liked Space Marines and wanted to take the dive, but then he was very confused because there was no clean and easy way to be introduced to Space Marines as the models on the tabletop.
That's fair.
But without any further ado, let's jump in.
Sounds good.
Before we begin, though, real quick, we've got merch on Orchid 8. Please go look at it if you're a fan of the show. It helps us out if you end up supporting us.
And it's just good stuff. Like, honestly, solid merch.
Also, before I forget, we still have that bonus episode over on the Patreon that you don't even have to, pay us money for. You just have to become a free member, and you get access to the secret tier list of our own episodes if you need an extra several hours of us in your life this week. All right, but that's enough shilling. Let's get into the episode proper.
Yeah, I think there's a couple setup rules on what we're doing here.
Yeah, let me real quick lay down the rules of engagement.
Because this isn't just go buy the latest Space Marine combo box.
I will say it's not the worst thing to happen. If you're worried about that type of stuff, we have episodes dedicated to combo boxes and all of that. We have a whole intro video series you could watch of all kinds of stuff. Some of them are slightly outdated and talk about 9th edition stuff, but they're all close enough that it won't matter when you're new.
But I think we'll go a bit more into the actual full range of Space Marines here.
Yes, but for our actual plan of attack, we're not going to cover named characters on this one. In Space Marines, there's a lot of them, and they lock you to playing a specific type of Space Marine, unlike with any other faction where the named characters can get used however you want.
If you see a named character that you really like, take a look at what chapter it's tied to and see if that's interesting, and that'll be your thing then. But otherwise, we'll stay more generic. And there's still plenty of character options, even just generically.
And you can grab all the characters and paint them up in your own special scheme, and it'll be fine. We're skipping it for the intro level stuff. We're going to stick to things that are generically applicable. In the same way, we're not covering chapter-specific models, so I'm sorry, Sanguinary Guard, not today.
I feel like we have enough models to talk about already. Let's focus on the core, and we'll branch out later.
Yeah, so what we're talking about today are Space Marines fieldable in any Space Marine army, with extremely weird exception cases I don't want to get into. Yes, we're aware, Black Templar players and Space Wolf players, you're very, very unique.
Yeah, and mostly we're going to be focusing on the actual buyable models, as opposed to these are technically legit, have rules, but you're going to have to go on a secondary eBay or whatever.
Yeah, but Space Marines is weird, so we are going to be covering models that only exist in combo boxes and weird little things like that, just because that's how Space Marines get released. Also, as a quick warning, we're going to attempt to show off all of the models, but the Space Marine range is massive. This took hours for us to comb through and double check that we got everybody. I'm sure we missed at least one lieutenant.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, neither of us are core Space Marine players. I say this as I have a Grey Knight avatar, but is different. Okay? Trust me.
Grey Knights and Thousand Suns, we can count our boxes on our hands.
Yeah, we're not hardcore dedicated Space Marine players. There's probably going to be a couple things that we missed just because we know them, we play against them, but they're not our primary kind of thing.
Look, if the list is incomplete, just blame Borrelio. It's what I plan on doing.
You underestimate my power!
Also, we're not going to talk specific rules. We're going to talk about the fantasy of a unit, what it's meant to do, what it wants to do, but that may not be perfectly reflected in the current rules or balance of the game. Rules change very often in 40K. Don't worry about the specifics when you're getting in.
There will be some rules that we probably reference kind of thing of just the general, this is, a fast attack infantry kind of thing. It's got a jetpack. Seems like it's going to do that job pretty well. well kind of thing, but nothing super specific.
We're not going to be reading off specific rules of these models in this episode. It's not that important when you're just jumping in. You'll figure it out as you go. And then as a last note, I'm a known Space Marine hater. I technically own an army of Space Marines because of this podcast, but I will attempt to be upbeat and positive about the Space Marine range in this episode.
Liar!
I will still at least make fun of them once. At least once.
All right, you get your once out of the way right now with Old Marines and our caveat on that.
Okay, this is a serious topic. We're not going to cover Old Marines for the rest of the episode after this. The vast majority of the range was removed last year, and lore-wise, they have been all but extinct for the last half a decade of lore written. There's still about 10 kits of the Old Marine range that get sold right now, but if you're new and about to spend money on the game for the first time, I want it given to you straight. In all likelihood, the Old Marine range will be completely replaced shortly. They have been replaced regularly every single year. Buying anything from that range is not recommended. If you're viewing this episode and it's 2 years old now, chances are half of the Old Marines I'm about to mention don't exist anymore when you're watching this and have been Primarisified.
And I think that that's kind of like the caveat that I want to tack on there is these are probably all going away soon-ish with a 2 years is probably going to be half of them, and then 4 years, 5 years. So there is still several years that these are probably going to be okay, but 5 years in the scheme of Warhammer 40K is not that long given how long it takes to build, paint, and all that stuff.
We're not going to cover Tactical Marines, Devastators. We're not going to cover Vanguard Vets, which are already limited to only the ones that have jetpacks because they half got rid of Vanguard Vets. We're not going to cover Centurions, as hilarious as they look. We're not going to cover the Assault Terminators. It's clearly just going to be an upgrade thing to the new Terminator kit. We're not going to cover Drop Pods, the Predators, the Vindicator, memes aside, the Whirlwind, the Rhino, the Razorback, the original box Dreadnought, any of the Flyers, and the Land Raider.
So a lot of the vehicles, I think you could get away with, getting these and still being able to play the old ones as the new ones, so long as you're not on some competitive tournament or whatever. But at the same time, we're not recommending.
So after this moment, we're talking the Primaris era. All right, now we have a big faction. We're going to split it up and talk about it in segments that are all thematically linked. So we'll start off with the most vanilla standard Space Marine Tacticus armor. This is the classic look that you probably saw throughout all of Space Marine 2 that you go, that's what a Space Marine looks like.
Basically, this is the default, and then the other ones are alternative based on these kind of things.
Yeah, so starting with the characters, captains first. Currently, there's 3 of them in Tacticus armor. The generic captain model, the captain with relic shield that came out in Indominus, and the captain with jump pack that came out this edition. They're all pretty beautiful.
Dude, that shield.
The Indominus era blade guard look that we'll come to talk about is the hardest. It goes so hard.
It does. That shield alone with the skeleton on it. Oh man, dude, that's so it's one thing that a lot of these are okay, you have captain, and then you have captain with relic shield and captain with jump pack, and then we'll get to lieutenants, and why are these separate things? They're just a slight loadout difference. But then I look at the captain with relic shield and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, yeah, that deserves a separate thing. That's fucking cool.
Yeah. And I actually, on mine, I swapped out the skull on the head for a Necron one, and the plan is to make it glow when I finish painting him.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool. There's so much that you can do with it, even as it is, and then, kit bashing and stuff like that. Dude, the captain with the relic shield does go hard. I like it a lot. Not that the captain and captain with jump are bad or anything, it's just, I have my preference.
The jump pack captain does have the cool power fist. There's some neat loadouts you can do with them. It really comes down to your captain will probably match whatever your starting theme for your force is. If you want to go heavy into a more blade guard look, pick up your captain with relic shield. If you want to go with a very bog standard look, generic captain. If you want to go with a bunch of jump pack, fast attack type stuff, then you go with your jump pack captain. All of them look decent. I think my favorite is the jump pack captain though. I really like the cape from behind.
Yeah, it is cool. It adds that flair. It feels like he's going fast because of the cape.
But when it comes down to it, gameplay-wise, they're all fine. It's about who they lead. They tend to just lead what they match for the most part. So have your captain match what you plan for your majority of your army to look like. And of course, you will end up with multiple of these long-term. Don't worry too much.
Yeah, basically, like you said, the looks of the captain variants kind of go with, the units that you're going to be fielding. So, like, they fit thematically to the rules that you would be expecting them to. It's not like, oh, the shield guy is, like, actually super fast. They kind of fit their themes.
Yeah, and for a quick lore angle of things, your captain is your highest ranked member of your classic Space Marine company, minor tangent versions aside. So your captain is basically going to be your leader of your force until you get to the making your own chapter master and having whoever your favorite Primarch is.
Yeah, and I mean, the captains are generally pretty good, not super frail or anything like that.
Now we have to discuss the meme of Space Marines.
The lieutenants.
So you played as Lieutenant Titus if you played Space Marine 2. That was not a coincidence that he was a lieutenant. Lieutenants are GW's absolute favorite thing because they're very important, but they're not so important they're like a tracked thing, so you could just have Lieutenant Joe Schmo and it could be totally canon. Because of this, they release a lot of lieutenant models. A lot. It is a running joke in the 40K community that there is a new Primaris Lieutenant every week.
Which is a bit much, but
there have been over a dozen Primaris Lieutenant sculpts released for special occasions and stuff. That said, for your generic ones that exist right now, we've got the Lieutenant with Storm Shield that came out from Indominus, who obviously matches the captain with the shield. We've got the Lieutenant with Power Sword, which is just one of the generic ones that they still sell. And then we have the new one, which is just called the Lieutenant from Games Workshop standpoint. And this has all the options to build all the weird variants of lieutenants, can have all sorts of loadouts. I think some of the few things it can't build is the Lieutenant with Storm Shield.
Yeah, I don't know for certain on that one, but there's a lot of variations and loadout options, which as a new player can feel overwhelming, honestly. Don't sweat it too much. Just build what's cool.
Yeah, it comes down to if you want the laurels of victory on your Lieutenant to look like Titus at the end of the game, go with the Lieutenant with Power Sword. If you want to match your Captain with Shield, go with your Lieutenant with Shield. And if you just want a billion options to make your own personal dude and have your favorite OC character that you're going to make a bunch of lore for, grab the Lieutenant and kit him how you want.
Honestly, looks-wise, the basic Lieutenant kind of feels lackluster.
It's a very safe look. It is meant entirely to be you can do whatever you need to him.
Yeah, but the Lieutenant with Power Sword's cool.
It's the classic pose in my head for a Lieutenant, just because that's the one that I just remember that's what a Primaris Lieutenant looks like. I do love the entire Blade Guard look as we get through this Tacticus thing of the Indom era Blade Guard look is so good. So if you were to just pick up the captain, the lieutenant, and everything else that's got that aesthetic, it's such a cool knightly look. Especially if you were trying to build Dark Angels or something, which we're not getting into today. But if you were going that route, absolutely. I'd start here and then get Terminators and stuff and then go into the Dark Angel specific stuff.
Yeah, that would fit thematically pretty well.
Get some Hellblasters.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Lieutenant with Storm Shield. It's a nice look, but at the same time, it's clearly, which I guess is a good thing, it's clearly less exciting than the captain.
Yeah, he's supposed to be little brother to the captain looks-wise. He is, I am important man, but not as important as that man.
He's super cool, right? Which is great. I'm a big fan of it. Kind of annoying, though, just the amount of lieutenants.
We're not done. We'll be back to lieutenants multiple times.
But do we want to move on to the Apothecary, maybe?
Yeah, let's cover all the other types of Space Marine characters. These ones are not a direct hierarchy thing. Apothecaries are your medics / the guys who get the gene seeds so that they can build more Space Marines out of the ones who die.
They're the ones with the gun that heals. The classic TF2.
Yes, my bullets do negative damage.
Don't worry, I'm healing you.
But the Apothecary is sweet. I really like the combination of looking like he is ready for combat, but also clearly being a medic. It is pulled off well between the pensive look he's got in this silhouette while still having his gun at the ready, which is I forget, the Nitherium, I think? I don't remember. The medic gun.
Yeah, the Narthecium.
Yeah. See? Space Marine words. We don't have those in Thousand Suns.
No, you just have cool spells.
We do. Well, we used to.
You still do comparatively.
Yeah, comparatively.
The Apothecary, it definitely does a solid job of being like, this is clearly a Space Marine. If you try and tango with them, they'll still fuck you up if you're just like a general person. But at the same time, like, they're a medic, which is a difficult balance to actually do. And I think it pulls it off pretty well. And it obviously does that kind of thing in the game. It heals, and it still is a Space Marine, so it'll slap.
It lets you get your Space Marines back up on their feet. It heals up ones who are damaged. The whole works. Librarians, these are your Psychers, your Mages, your Magic Men.
They're the Magic Men.
The Magic Men. A generic Librarian is not my favorite Librarian Space Marines have access to looks-wise, but it is your classic old wizard face. But it's a very safe look.
It's a safe look. It doesn't feel quite like...
It is the worst of the three that we're going to cover.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But like, it's distinct enough that it's nice.
Yep. They cast spells, sometimes defensive ones, sometimes offensive ones, sometimes gun.
Sometimes gun, which, you know, for Space Marine, that makes sense.
But yeah, the Librarian is, do you want to have one?
And if you really, really want one, maybe you should look at Grey Knights.
Then you can have lots. Or you can turn to Chaos and do it right and become Thousand Suns.
And do it right. I hate that, but you're not wrong.
Imagine coming in from Space Marine 2 and being like, magic is cool, and not picking Thousand Suns somehow.
That's kind of the thing, yeah. Let's be honest, if you're gonna come from Space Marine 2 and do magic things, Thousand Suns is the way to do it. But the Librarian is still cool, and it's nice to have a character that does the thing, so like you can be like, let's try it out, kind of. So, Chaplain.
So, this gets into the religious-y part of Space Marines, but not really. Space Marine lore is a bit complicated.
Stop making it overly complicated. It's the, like, priestly section of Space Marines. They have litanies. Yes, there's more to it, but they're spiritual leaders. Like, fuck off. It's the religious part of it.
What if your religious guy was an atheist?
Yeah, sure. Basically.
But your chaplains, there are two available. One's in, like, a combo box, but you're not going to pick him over the one with the sweet skull mask anyway. Chaplains are metal as fuck. Basically, they don't really need a sales pitch. If you like the metal as fuck look, you're here. Chaplains are essentially your guys who make sure that your Space Marines don't fall to chaos. They are to instill order and goodness with their bonk stick.
I was gonna say, they have like a bonk stick to make sure, which is cool. Rules wise, it's kind of hard to show that off quite that well without like actually knowing.
Yes, basically they sing a prayer and everyone gets stronger. They tend to be a good melee fighter as far as characters go. You definitely want them if you want a more religiously looking army.
Yeah.
If you're trying to go that route, you absolutely are going to have a couple chaplains.
Definitely. And your next army of interest is probably going to be Sisters.
It's true. But there's also the junior chaplain and Judiciar, who, for reasons unknown, has time stop powers in the rules. It's just always how he's worked in 9th and 10th. It's a little strange, but he is way cooler looking than the chaplain for no reason. He's got his sweet executioner sword. He's got his sweet giant hourglass that I stole from my Thousand Suns.
From looks wise, yeah, he kind of looks like the chaplain. There's a lot of similarities going on there. But like, I guess I didn't know that the Judiciar was kind of like a one step lower than the chaplain, just because what the fuck is the time stop? Like, there's nothing, doesn't have litanies and all that stuff.
It's the relic he's holding. It's because they modeled him with a big hourglass.
It doesn't make any sense to me and feels like completely different rules wise from a chaplain.
But yeah, they tend to be good melee soloists, fighters. They tend to screw with combat. This is the only one that has existed, and it hasn't existed for very long, so that may change with time. Maybe he doesn't do anything time related by the time you watch this.
It's gonna be real awkward with that hourglass.
I just remember the horrors of 9th edition of seeing this guy and knowing that my guys are going to be dead before they ever get to do anything. But then we can move on to the exact opposite side of things and go from the religious look to the most tech-oriented with the Techmarine. Do you like vehicles? Do you like machinery? The Techmarines are for you, and they're for me. The most cool part of Space Marines to me, having all sorts of neat tech and taking care of it with a Techmarine. Or 3.
Yeah. Or more, yeah. Dude, this model is so cool with all the like extra bits kind of thing. Like it's very AdMech.
That's on purpose.
No, yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason they're red.
It's great because like the AdMech models are awesome. Dude, this Techmarine goes hard for like the tech aesthetic kind of thing. Honestly, works really well rules wise if you're into the more heavy armor vehicle kind of stuff.
Techmarines are basically if you plan on playing vehicle heavy with dreadnoughts and tanks and all the cool parts of Space Marines, you want at least one Techmarine. They are baller. I don't know how to sell it more than, have you seen the giant robot arm he has? Have you seen that he gets mechadendrites? That's the snake arms from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, little grabby arms.
And a giant axe.
I do want to say that like the Techmarine, if you're not going into more of the vehicle and tech side, can look out of place if you have a bunch of like Chaplains and some Apothecaries and like you're going into that kind of style. The Techmarine will be like, that's noticeably different.
And you just don't need it at that point. Chaplains, Techmarines, Librarians, these are all things that tell you the flavor you're going for in your army. Then we've got Ancients. There's two of them available, the generic Primaris Ancient and the Blade Guard Ancient. As Eric had to learn on air, and now all of you will as well, Ancient does not just mean old, it means guy who holds the flag.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It's just the English language.
It's just dumb. It's a big fucking flag though. You raise that banner, bro.
They change their rules edition to edition, but generally they tend to be either a buff aura or make your guys better at holding on to a position. Your classic, we stand here and hold this.
Yeah, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, you have your banner, you plant it, and it's like, this is ours.
I will say the Blade Guard Ancient is the one Blade Guard related model that I don't love, partly because he needed to have a shield and not his weird skelly hand relic.
Yeah, the core looked solid, but that hand is just a bit weird.
I would absolutely kit bash mine with a spare shield.
Not really the aesthetic that I expect out of Blade Guard.
Yeah, love the cloak look.
I was going to say I like the model in general, and I like the Blade Guard still more than the General Ancient. That banner, I'm sure, is some people's thing. Just looks kind of dumb to me to be carrying something like that into battle.
It's the Space Marine thing. It's the thing that you and I don't get well.
Yeah, like it is a cool banner, all right? It's big. You can do a bunch of stuff with it, I'm sure, but like...
Yours probably won't look that good.
Right, yeah.
Just as a fair warning, until you get very good at painting banners. All right, that covers all of the Tacticus normal Space Marines. So let's get into the general units that use the general armor set, of which there's a lot. So going through them, we've got our basic Intercessor. This is your bog standard. This is a Space Marine. You've got a bolter. You've got Tacticus armor. Generic Space Marine. It does not get more normal.
Yeah, basically, this is your battle line infantry general Space Marine.
It exists so that we can tell what all the other ones are by comparison to this. But if you just want dudes with bolters, the most classic look, Intercessors.
And it's a solid look. Like, it does the job pretty well. There's nothing really wrong with it kind of thing. It's kind of trimmed down from a lot of the more special ones, which is the point.
Then we've got Infernus Marines, which are the Intercessors of the edition. That means they're very cheap to get a hold of this edition. They are Intercessors, but what if we swap out our bolters so that we all have flamethrowers, which in 40k are called flamers, or in this case Pyre Blasters, which is a form of flamer. But Infernus Marines are pretty sick. Flamers are always going to win with me. Flamers and plasma are the quickest ways to my heart.
Yeah, the guns, like aesthetically, they've got a look to them that feels more like oomph kind of thing than like your general bolter, at least in my opinion.
There's something about a war crime in your hands that just feels good.
Exactly. It's like, yes, this is Space Marine. This is 40k.
So then we've got Assault Intercessors. These are your more melee-oriented, later on their feet, charge forward, unga bunga, slash everybody up, what you played for most of Space Marine 2. This is, I've got a pistol, but also I'm just here to chop people in half.
Yeah, the whole swinging around your melee weapon as your primary, essentially, and then you just happen to have a gun.
Which still fires giant explosive rounds and blows things in half.
Right, it's just, it's it's more fun to close and swing your chainsword around. That's the Assault Intercessor. And like, honestly, it kind of plays that way as well, where it's like, yeah, you've got a gun, it'll kill stuff, but close in quickly and hit them with your chainswords.
It is the newbie friendliest of the bunch, in my opinion, because it's usually the easiest to do okay by running forward, charging, and then just rolling all your dice. You're not worried as much about positioning early on in your career, and
yeah, and I mean, the Assault Intercessor does a great job of it, and they look pretty cool. Just all the melee weapons feels Space Marine 2.
I like them. I'm slightly partial to them because my brother plays Blood Angels, so I'm used to this being like the Space Marines I play against most.
It kind of feels more as the default than like the Intercessor. Like,
yeah, we'll get to the cooler Intercessor later. Intercessors are my least favorite of all of these. But then we've got Jump Pack Intercessors. These are just they're Assault Intercessors with jump packs. What if we wanted to Unga Bunga, but we wanted to do it even faster, so we put on jetpacks so we could boost forward into battle faster?
Basically.
I absolutely love these models. I like that they didn't get put on the crappy old flight stands or anything stupid. They've got very nice dynamic forward lunging poses. Be warned, having put these together myself, this kit sucks to put together. I don't know why it's so bad. It's very, very new. It just does not want to fit together well.
From a look standpoint, I agree though. These are cool.
I love the Primaris jump pack though. Like, I really love the like beetle wing look.
It feels so, I don't know, chunky kind of compared to the more lithe look of the actual armor set, but that feels right, where it's like I put a fucking giant rocket on my back, essentially. I want to go real fast. These are cool, and I mean, they do the thing. When you play it, you're going to expect go quick, hit them with a sword.
So that covers like all of the basic troops that are in Tacticus. So getting into the more specialty things, we've got Hellblasters, which is more of a heavy weapon squad. All of the Intercessors swap out their normal bolt guns for plasma, which is the coolest of the Imperium weapons, as we've said previously.
The same thing with how like the Infernus are kind of cooler. Well, yeah, Hellblasters definitely do that to the next step, essentially.
Yeah, I want that to go away over there, and I don't care if I lose my hand to do it.
It's worth it. Did you see that? That was so fucking cool, man.
Brother Cletus, what happened to your arm?
Let me tell you a story.
I was holding this firecracker.
I was holding this fire.
But they're a heavy weapon squad meant for like destroying light armor and stuff. They also shred other Space Marines really well. If you have them, you want an Apothecary to go with them because they have a bad habit of blowing themselves up with their plasma guns, and the Apothecary can get them back standing again.
It's generally a good idea to have an Apothecary available. It's interesting that like these are a heavy weapon kind of thing, but they also aren't in the like bulky suits. You know, they're still the more Tacticus style.
There's a manufacturing reason for that. They came first.
Yeah.
But we're not getting into that today.
Right, but like it's, you know, it's an aesthetic, which is kind of neat.
Now, I don't have a reason why the Desolation Squad is not in Gravis, which would put them into god tier territory.
I mean, the Desolation Squad's just fucking stupid.
Their meme guns are already so good. If they had just been in the coolest armor set, they would be amazing. Eric does not like the meme double-barreled rocket launcher. I don't get it. What if we took a double-barrel shotgun and just made it into a rocket launcher?
No, it's...
And then we underslung more rockets and then belt fed them with a belt into a rocket launcher with a belt that is smaller than the rockets.
It's absolutely the perfect orc weapon. And then they put it on a Space Marine.
You will find that many people do not like the Desolation Squad if they take things seriously. The Desolation Squad is fantastic because they are hilarious.
12 out of 10. Fucking nailed it. You did 40K.
I hate this. Well done.
Yeah, basically. The fact that they're in the Tacticus armor is wrong.
I think it's the one thing that I really do hate about them is if they were in Gravis, everything about them would be better.
Yeah.
I know everybody hates their guns. I am aware of this. I love that they're funny.
Though if they were in Gravis, the guns would feel slightly less dumb.
Because it'd be on a bigger man.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're tanked up essentially. Okay, that's still a dumb gun, but like, all right. It's just such a meme for the comparison between gun and person, and you're like, the gun's as big as the person. Cool. But yeah, it's a choice.
Moving into our veterans, we've got the Sternguard veterans, which are the more shooty veterans. They've got a mix of variety available to them of different types of specialty weapons that are all ranged weapons, and they tend to be your more backline veteran. So if you want to do like a Blade Guard aesthetic the whole way through, like a lot of veterancy, a lot of like older Marines all over, these will be your elite shooty boys.
It is kind of cool, but I feel like some of the special guns, maybe it's because we literally just talked about Desolation and it's next to it, but it like some of them feel kind of underwhelming.
The special guns they have access to are like combi weapons and like normal in air quotes things for a Space Marine to have access to, and not meme lord shit.
Yeah, they very much feel just like a slightly more elite. They've tried a bunch of shit and they figured out, oh, this is what I'm the best at. I'm going to take that gun and it's going to be customized to me essentially, because that's how I kill the most shit.
Yeah, combi weapons currently aren't in a great spot, as I'm sure many comments are about to point out. We're going to ignore that fact. Rules change often. Then we've got the melee-oriented veterans, the ones that we've been calling this entire aesthetic, which is the Blade Guard veterans. They're the release that really added this look to Primaris Marines, and it's like my favorite look for Primaris Marines as far as like Tacticus armor goes. It's beautiful. They're exactly what it looks like. Dudes with swords and shields.
And like there's a lot of extra little bits essentially to give them that like extra character. They're cool essentially. And Blade Guard vets are the melee version kind of thing. They've got good stats essentially in melee, even better than just general Space Marines.
Yeah, if you want a very knightly look to your Space Marine army, go heavy into the Blade Guard stuff. Like Captain with Shield, Lieutenant with Shield, Blade Guard vets, Blade Guard Ancient, get a spare shield put on him. Get some Stern Guard vets, and then some less veteran people to fill things out, like Assault Intercessors and stuff, who you know are cutting their teeth, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be done there. Thematically, they can all fit together pretty well.
And then to end off Tacticus, we've got the like strange one of like the company heroes, your characters in training, the last step before becoming like the big boy lieutenant captain equivalent. I'm pretty sure in previous editions this was a pile of characters in one data sheet. I'm not going to go look it up. Currently they act as an elite unit, and I know one of them is like your company champion, which is like your best duelist that you have access to in your company and lore.
And then like you've got the ancient because he's got the big banner, and like you can tell like, yeah, these are characters but they're squatted and not quite as good, so like, yeah, I guess they're the almost characters.
They're your captain's elite dudes. They hang out with whoever's in charge and have like the hyper elite core area. But anyway, that wraps up Tacticus, which is the biggest of the sections we're going to go through. Let's go into Phobos next. These are our sneaky Marines, our tactical look.
Just the fact that like these are the sneaky Space Marines.
Yeah, I know. The lighter, more nimble.
Don't worry, they're still stomping around in power armor.
They're 8 feet tall, but they're very sneaky about it.
Yeah. But yes, they have a more quick look to them kind of thing.
So the Phobos armor set, it gives you the more slimmed down look. You can see the under armor more. The captain is clearly what they just copy pasted into Space Marine 2 to be the captain. The Scottish guy whose name I've already forgotten. The man who can only spare 3 people at any given point in time, no matter what the situation, because it's funny and the writing demands it.
It is funny, but yeah.
The captain in Phobos armor is actually like my least favorite of the Phobos looks.
Oh, I think it's a solid default option kind of thing. Still got the cape kind of going on with a bunch of like, I don't know, radio kind of things. It's just like there's a lot of stuff.
I don't like the unhelmeted head. If you use a helmeted head, it's fine. I'm not a big fan of the servo skull that is like glued to his knee. It's supposed to look like it's floating nearby him, but when you look at the actual model, it is very clearly like glued to his knee. It doesn't does not give the illusion.
I know what you're saying, but like I feel there's probably ways to get around that if you make some changes, because like the skull itself is kind of neat.
I'd have to check if you can just model him without the skull, or if the knee pad has a dip in it to put the skull into.
Right. I mean, there's obviously ways to do it, but like how easy it is.
Yeah. But anyway, he is the exact same as any captain, where he's going to be your archetypical leader character. He buffs his unit he's leading well, all that stuff.
He just also has like the whole slight tint to it of a tactical part. I mean, currently he gets to like put things in strategic reserve or something like that, but like it's not just the generic captain. There's a little bit of flavor to it actually in the rules.
Yes. Everything to do with Phobos will be about like moving yourself around sneakily at the beginning of the game, or, you know, redeploying after your opponent thinks you're somewhere, repositioning yourself. Then we've got 2 more lieutenants. At one point there was 3 I was aware of, but it looks like we're down to 2 now.
All right, so which of the lieutenants do you want to start with?
Let's just start with the Reaver lieutenant. This is when you put on your Reaver outfit in Space Marine 2, and is the joke that everyone was making. Bricky made it like 100 times of there's going to be a bunch of people who play Space Marine 2 and think Reavers are cool, and then they're going to buy Reavers, and then they're going to find out in game how they play.
Yeah. It's not quite the same.
It's the same, but the numbers aren't good. But that's not the point of this episode. I do love the Lieutenant in Reaver armor, just because I love the smoke grenade.
It is cool.
For some reason, this is one of the models where I can perfectly imagine it in my head without like looking at it. I could instantly, if you were like Reaver Lieutenant, boom, the visual is like, I know he's holding his dagger up high, he's got his gun in front of him, and there's the smoke grenade on the ground in front of him as he's jumping off of scrap. Like, it just is stuck in my head. It's such a good silhouette.
Yeah, all of it together, it looks like he's kind of like a special ops, doing the thing, being super cool, has a bunch of gadgets. It's a dynamic story to the model, which is neat.
Yeah, and then our other lieutenant option in Phobos is the lieutenant with combi weapon. This is the lieutenant from the current iteration of combo boxes from this edition. That's why he's got Tyranid stuff on him. I love this lieutenant because he has character. His not fully helmeted head has his like ripped up skull, and then he's got his Tyranid parts he strapped onto his shoulder as a trophy. His combi weapon's just draped over the back while he's got his knives out ready to do melee combat. I really like this lieutenant a lot.
I agree, except...
Yeah, okay, you can say how much you hate it.
That stupid drip.
This is the GW goo drip.
It's so over the top. It's dumb. It's like honestly dumb.
GW loves the idea of sculpting blood and guts coming off of weapons, and it's always these giant cartoony huge blobs where like in universe the drip there is like as big around as your wrist is in real life.
Completely unnecessary, and like gives that cartoony look to this otherwise badass.
You're correct.
All the things that you said are true. Very cool. And then
I'm used to the stupid drip. It's part of GW's art style, but I am aware that many people don't like the slobber.
Maybe that is kind of, I think, why I associate it.
You're mentally remembering it as slobber because it'll be all over all of your squigs. They always do this on squig mouths.
Yeah, I hadn't actually understood that, but I think that now you've said that, that is the association, and it's just like squigs are cartoony.
It looks right on a squig. It's one of the only places I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But I'm used to it being on a lot of different stuff. Now we get to, in my opinion, the best librarian that Space Marines have access to in the coolest drip, Librarian Phobos armor. The guy who's actually in a mage robe.
I don't know. I think it's dumb.
He's so good. The lighter armor set lets him look less bulky. He's got his wizard robe on that is also just a stealth robe, but it looks like a wizard robe if you paint it right. Power sword for his Jedi sword. I really like the Librarian in Phobos armor so much more than the generic Librarian.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's not mine. It's definitely not the Phobos Librarian.
You're extremely biased, Mr. Terminator. You're extremely biased.
I don't know what you're talking about. The Librarian of Phobos is a cool silhouette. kind of thing of like what it's doing.
Technically, rules-wise, the Librarians have been different for the entire existence of this model. Most people will just let you play it as a generic Librarian, should you say so. As long as you don't have both, then it might get confusing. But this one's spells tend to be more focused on like obfuscation, like making your dudes harder to hit, or moving dudes around, or screwing up your opponent's aim, stuff like that. That tends to be his theme over the generic Librarian. It changes with every rule change. I don't own a generic Librarian. I only bought this one because it's way cooler, and I will use it however I damn well please.
All right, I think that's the characters kind of out of the way.
So the rest of the range is quite small. This was just a one-off release of a couple boxes. So we've got the Infiltrators / Incursors, depending how you build them. This was very entertaining watching Eric figure out which was which.
I swore you had just put two of the exact same ones in the show notes, and I was like, all right. And then I like actually looked and I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. Yeah. No, it is like separate models that you can buy. They're separate things.
They're a single box that builds either.
Yeah, technically they are different, but like they're not at the same time.
They're not. So for those of you who are not used to trying to figure out the minor differences between Space Marines, welcome to Space Marines. Incursors, officially, even though the helmet's not really what separates them, have the half helmets where their hairdo is showing. They also, the one that's the easiest to pick up on when you're trying to play the game, instead of having antennas, they have a box thing on their backpack. So the power pack either is antennas for Infiltrators or box Amy device things for Incursors. I don't know what the box is supposed to be.
I don't know either. It's some type of...
A scanner?
Yeah, it's probably some type of scanner.
Who knows? Spy stuff.
Yeah.
The main part that matters. Infiltrators are your more generic, live, Intercessor equivalent. Incursors are slightly worse in exchange for getting to carry around a mine. Incursors will always be cooler to me because they have a mine. And there's something cool about being like the special ops guys setting up the bomb.
Sure. You're not wrong, but also like they're still the same thing.
They very much are. It's one of the harder ones for me to actually tell you why the difference, other than specific rules differences.
They're cool. They definitely do the Phobos tactical, but they're the same. Moving on to the absolute coolest in Space Marine 2.
The joke one of the Reivers. They are definitely aesthetically the Phobos look personified. Reivers with their skull helmets that are like the best bit ever.
And they've got the combat knife thing going on there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think it's cool. I like the combat knife look on this model style.
I think they'd look better if they were all dripping with giant cartoony drips.
Yep, absolutely.
I do actually love the grappling hook design thing. Like, the one that's pre-shot, it's kind of dopey looking in real life when you look at the model.
It's kind of dopey, but it's also kind of cool. It's really weird because I'm like, that looks dumb, but it's cool. I kind of like it, right? Like, all of these mixed emotions.
You don't have to model it with it. It's an option to like not put it on, but
it would feel wrong, right? Like, this is the Reivers. Come on.
I will say the skull helmet is the coolest. Like, yes, it makes you feel like a 12-year-old playing Call of Duty, but I don't care. I love the skull helmet look.
No, I'm on board.
Just don't care too much about their rules. You'll get disappointed.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, but what about the Eliminators?
I love the actual Space Marine sniper look. This is my part of Phobos that I love. The Eliminators have massive sniper rifles, and you can get it like the Las Fusel for like the huge cannon sniper rifle. But they've got the cool sneaky look. You can even, like in the not easy to build kit, in the actual full kit, you can give the sergeant guy a carbine, and it's really sweet to have like a very spec ops looking unit in what is otherwise a very chunky range.
Yeah, the other thing is like the cloaks are actually pretty cool. Like, I know I didn't actually like it that much on the Librarian. I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me, but like when it's actually like this cloak that like feels sniper like, you're laying down in like the grass and you throw the cloak over and it's like, I'm invisible now. I don't know, it feels better in this style and just looks so cool.
The cloaks being able to be painted with like the stealth field look is so badass too. Like whenever you see someone who does that, oh, it's so awesome. It's a deceptively simple trick to pull off if you look up some guides online for how to do that look, but oh, it's so good.
I'm a huge fan of the Eliminators.
They're a neat heavy weapon squad too, because like they tend to be very cheap for their points and are pretty good for like taking out like key lighter targets.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say they're gonna be the best thing ever, but like they tend to be underrated in my opinion, like for the majority of their lifespan, regardless of currently.
I feel like a lot of that comes down to just the fact that like Space Marines as a whole generally do
straightforward, just shoot it with the biggest gun you can find.
Yeah, and like even the Phobos, as sneaky as they are, generally a lot of that's done like during deployment and like they're doing that kind of stuff, or they're just going faster, whereas the Eliminators are like actually trying to do sniper kind of things, which is awesome but not the general trend, so I can see it being undervalued.
And now we get into objectively the greatest armor set ever invented, Gravis.
It's close.
You're going to argue for Terminators when we get there. But
it's close.
I love my Beetleborgs. I absolutely love the big, chunky Gravis armor.
It feels right.
It's so large.
It really feels like you can do the whole power fist thing right.
Yes. Lore-wise, Space Marines are essentially walking tanks. Like, it's a one-man tank. The Gravis armor feels like you're a walking tank. So, Gravis Captain, technically there's two kits for it. The one that was like first made, which is the master-crafted heavy bolt rifle one, and then the one they made afterwards with different options. That's just Captain and Gravis armor if you ever look up which is which. They are the same dude. It's just which one you buy to get which loadout you want. Welcome to Space Marines. This is how they release.
Yeah, they both kind of do the same thing. I like the Captain Gravis a bit more.
Yeah, I like the dynamic pose he's got. I like the cape flowing. I do like the like really passive look on the other one too, though, like from a different angle. I don't know. You can't lose. It's Gravis. It looks great.
I feel like I like the Captain and Gravis a bit more. I feel like the posing just is more I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yes, it's dynamic.
Yeah.
It's an action shot.
In a Captain, I think that's really cool. But they're both good, and like they do the things in the rules, like they're captains and...
Yeah, they're the same model gameplay-wise. It's just two different loadouts.
I could see, choosing the sword a bit more if like you're trying to push melee a bit more. Cool. Apothecary
Biologis, war criminal, not medic. Slightly different. The other one's a healer. This one Kevorkian's dudes.
Yeah, it's good to know that ahead of time because they've got a similar style.
They are the exact same thing. They're both apothecaries, but this is like, what if instead of healing people, we have our doctors commit genetic crimes? What if we plant bioweapons?
Yeah, that sounds more 40K. The model itself, cool fuck.
I love it. It's one of my favorite new models just because I love the big bulky look combined with the apothecary look.
They go so well today. Like, without seeing this model that was like, pitched out there as an idea, I'd be like, really? Like, your medic's supposed to be not getting shot, right? Like, that it's not like, oh, let's put more armor on him kind of thing.
Yeah, but he wants to hang out with other Gravis boys and make them more deadly.
Yeah.
He's less about defense and is more about the best defense is a good dead enemy. If they're dead, they can't wound you.
Not wrong.
Then we've got the Aggressors, the OG Gravis, my big turtle buddies. I absolutely love the Aggressors. You've got double power fists that you just strap chain guns or flamers onto, and then your backpack is a rocket launcher that shoots grenades. So I guess grenade launcher.
The Aggressor is what I feel like the Desolation should have been kind of thing.
It's exactly my problem of if the Desolation Squad had just been Gravisified, everyone would be like, that's sick. Because Aggressors are objectively cool as hell.
And like absolutely over the top. Like what the fuck is those power fists with what the fuck?
The man in that armor cannot go to a resting pose. He is stuck in Giga Chad, arms out, fucking wide Putin walk.
Yeah, he'd be stomping.
You do not have a normal conversation while in an Aggressor suit. You are in full combat mode, arms out, ready to go.
Yeah, and it's cool.
I love Aggressors. 10 out of 10. You can do no wrong with this kit.
Very much an obvious aesthetic, though. The Aggressors are so
Huge.
turtle style that, like, they will stand out if the rest of your army is Phobos.
That said, that's one of my favorite aesthetics is half Gravis, half Phobos.
Yeah.
I legitimately love the, like, tanky anvil and your, like, lithe hammer.
They can work out.
And then we've got the heavy squad equivalent one, which is the Eradicators. These guys have Meltas. They are close range, delete this. As far as Gravis go, they're like the lighter version of Gravis that heavy Intercessors have. It's less cool than full Aggressor version with like the huge look up top, the giant bulk.
Yeah, I mean, the Eradicators definitely are still a bulky suit, but they aren't over the top.
Or they're not hilarious. They're actually trying to do a job, not find me the biggest armor in the armory, brother.
Yeah.
More.
And then make it bigger.
Put that grenade launcher on my back. I'm out of arms.
Yeah. Just strap these two to my arms.
I want the trigger word to be for the Emperor, and then it will fire. It will look cool as shit.
Yeah. The Eradicator definitely isn't quite so over the top, and like that's good in the way that it's modeled. You know what I mean? Like it feels right. They've got big gun. They're obviously a heavy weapons team, and they're in heavy armor, but it's not like, oh my god, if we tip him over, he won't be able to get back up.
That's true. The Eradicators are a very safe, good Gravis design as far as that goes.
I'm a fan.
Then we've got what would be like the normal dudes of Gravis, but to me, Gravis is all about the specialty heavy thing. So we've got heavy Intercessors as our actual like frontline guys.
Yeah, they're actual battle line. Like you can field an army that this is the core.
Yeah, they just got their heavy bolt rifles, which are like bigger bolt rifles. They shoot a bigger bolt gun round,
which was absolutely needed.
But yeah, they are a fine, cool, like generic battle line guy. But to me, Gravis is all about going crazy. Like, I love my heavy Intercessors. I'm really happy I own a shitload of them because of a collection I bought off eBay.
I was gonna say, you probably own too many.
I own too many for sure. But that said, I just greatly enjoy this armor set.
I really do like the heavy Intercessor look more than a lot of the other battle line options, just because, like, I don't know, it feels right.
It's the Gravis. You are the tank. That's the thing, is you're not trying to be a knight. You are trying to be a walking tank.
I feel because the heavy Intercessor does such a good job of being a solid starting point for Gravis that, like, we can be getting a lot more. Like, there's a lot more additions that can be added to a heavy Intercessor to make new Gravis models kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that.
And then we've got the Gravis sales pitch of the Inceptors. What if you take Gravis, a big bulky armor set?
Yeah, the thing that's supposed to just like stomp around.
And you apply a giant jetpack to it so you can fly around looking like a giant beetle. And then we give you 2 giant fuck off plasma guns that you can fire until you explode. And it'll take a couple explosions for you to die.
Oh, it's dumb.
And we drop you 3 inches away from your opponent and just have you blast.
I understand the whole, like, oh, the Gravis is, like, you know, the tank and slow and stuff like that. So let's get rid of that weakness by putting a jetpack on them. But at the same time, it's like, but that's dumb.
I don't care. That's why Gravis is cool.
I kind of also don't care. I'm with you on that. The, like, skis are dumb. I don't like those.
I actually really like the flight ski thing.
Those are stupid as fuck.
No, I like that for, like, the driving by, like, trying to, like, push your leg down to fire that thruster harder to go sideways.
No, that's dumb.
No, I like that design. It's a very cool look.
No, it's dumb.
Eric's wrong. And then the last thing, it's not really a Gravis unit, but it's confusing. It's the other jetpack unit, the Supressors. They're not Phobos, not Gravis, not anythingness. I really do like their look too, but it is weird that they're just different than Inceptors. Why weren't they Inceptors with a different, like, holding the autocannon instead?
I mean, to be fair, the autocannon is huge.
It is huge.
It's a tank gun.
Brother, I ripped this gun off a tank. Let's go. I've got a jetpack, so so we can move.
Exactly. I got a jetpack so we can move. What? Hold on, what?
Tank broke, took the main gun.
I'm becoming the tank. Yeah, the suppressors are cool. They've got a nice aesthetic to them.
I guess technically they might be considered Tacticus. It's a weird armor set, but they're like a weird one-off release that I don't even know how purchasable they are right now, because they were on like a half sprue thing with like several other models. Weird manufacturing stuff that's not worth getting into if you're new. Thematically, they're like Inceptors to me.
Let's finally move on to the actual coolest.
Yeah, we sandbagged Terminators for a reason, to keep Eric interested for the first 80% of this episode.
All right. Yeah, we're to the Terminators, dude. These are the coolest.
Reminder, Eric's entire army is based around this suit of armor, which is why Eric is very in love with Terminators. It's a cool look, but I think Gravis is cooler as far as modern era goes. I like 30K era Terminator armor a lot more than the modern Terminator armor.
Yeah.
Like, I like Cataphracti and Taurus a lot more than I like whatever current Terminator armor is called.
Sure.
So for Terminators, we clearly have a captain because that's how it works. It's a pretty generic look as far as Terminator captain goes. I feel like he needed a giant shield, but whatever.
A giant shield would be kind of cool, but like he sells the Terminator look. Essentially, like this is a Terminator.
To me, he gets upstaged by your favorite librarian.
Yeah, so the captain in Terminator is cool. It feels kind of like the generic because the librarian in Terminator is so fucking cool. Holy shit, this is one of the coolest models GW makes. I absolutely love this.
It's not my favorite librarian, but at the same time, I do love this as far as Terminator sculpts go.
Oh my god, it goes so hard. Just everything.
The runes is sick. I really love glowing runes. It's a sick look.
And like all the extra little bits that are like hanging off, just like it feels right.
Also, because I know there is going to be a non-zero number of people watching this who hate faces and want to put a helmet on everybody, do not fully assemble your librarian in Terminator armor thinking you can put a helmet in it afterwards. The helmet does not fit past the cowl. You have to put it in before you fully glue it together. This is a warning based off my own personal experience of having to do a lot of swearing to jam a helmet in there. Don't make my mistake. I know you want a helmet. You have to put the helmet on before you fully glue it together.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the only downside to like the default picture look kind of thing is like he's not in his helmet, but like you can just do that and then he's perfect. Dude, it's so cool. And it's got everything about being a librarian, like slinging psychic shit around. And it's clearly a Terminator. Like, fuck, dude.
All right, I'm going to be honest. The Chaplain Terminator is the worst Chaplain.
I hate to agree with you, but you're not wrong.
There's the old Terminator Chaplains that were like never full models. They were always released as like a special promo model once a year. Like that's one that's in your army.
Yeah.
Those all look better than the current Terminator Chaplain.
Those look pretty solid.
They are smaller because they're old Marine sized. They didn't get upsized into the Primaris size exact same armor set. But the rounded shoulders, and there's some style missing on this model. It's one of my few misses as far as Terminators go.
Yeah, and I feel like Chaplain just doesn't really work quite as well in the bulkier Terminator or even Gravis.
It can, but he needs more tchotchkes all over him. He needs drip. He's got to have stuff.
I could see it eventually working out, but like this one isn't quite there.
The big rounded shoulders aren't intimidating on the skull mask guy, like if that makes sense. Like he's got too friendly of a silhouette.
Yeah, no, he's got the friendly turtle look.
It's one of my few misses as far as Terminators go. I do like Terminators. I have to control Eric, but like they are sick. I'm just not a 40K loyalist Terminator look fan.
The Chaplain in Terminator I still think is nice. It's just, I agree that other options are slightly better. A little disappointing, but we've also got the actual Terminator Squad.
Yeah, so this is the new Terminators. They're Terminators. Like 90% of our audience is cheering right now. It's a Terminator.
I was like, dude, what do I even say about this at this point. Like, look at it. It's a Terminator.
GW made the entire 10th edition announcement trailer, a like 7-minute long trailer, just a build up to have Terminators teleport in and do gratuitous slow motion shots of Terminators firing weapons for like a minute. And the Tyranid snap face reaction to it, they made the entire 10th edition trailer around the fact that they were updating the Terminator kit. Terminators are like the biggest selling point of Space Marines for a lot of people. This kit doesn't need a sales pitch.
That's kind of the problem, right? Like, this kit absolutely doesn't need a sales pitch. Did you look at it and go immediately, holy shit, that's cool?
That said, I think Gravis looks better.
Second place.
So the Terminator range is very small because it's basically just Terminators and then characters they just made.
Yeah, it's kind of sad how small it is.
It used to be extremely bloated and they got rid of a whole bunch of old ancient kits, and I'm sure we're going to get them coming back over time, sprinkled throughout the next 3 years because it's Space Marines.
I was just gonna say, like, I expect there to be more releases of new Terminators for the next 5 years or whatever, and like, I'm looking forward to it because they're cool. A bit anemic at the moment, but it's gonna build up.
All right, it's time for the true stars of the show. The thing that is the best argument to get me to play a Space Marine army, it's Dreadnought
Invictor.
time.
Oh.
Oh, also the Invictor Tactical Warsuit is here.
Yeah, so Dreadnoughts. Which one do you want to start with first?
Let's do the Redemptor. It's the classic. It's the one that's in Space Marine 2 that I'm sure everyone remembers as the best moment in that game. A character who exists for 15 seconds and has more character than the entire main cast. So Redemptor Dreadnought is sick. What if your Space Marine gets too injured to fight? Well, we throw him into a coffin and then tie that coffin into a gigantic robot body and have him keep going at it until he has no mental fortitude to keep his brain together. Even in death, your duty does not end.
Yeah, and like, these walkers are actually pretty cool.
I love Dreadnoughts.
They're slightly generic in comparison to like, oh, we've got all these like little bits and like whatever, like the silhouette is kind of generic, but I like that because it feels right.
Yes, it's the very practical for a walker. We're not getting into Gundams not being practical thing, but they're a very practical take on it as far as 40k is concerned.
Yeah, and I like that quite a bit, and the Redemptor I feel does that really well.
It's got the classic Space Marine thing too of it's got its melee arm and its gun arm, just like, you know, looking at an assault intercessor or a lieutenant or a captain or a, they all tend to, that's how a Space Marine is. One hand for ranged, one hand for melee. This is the Space Marine standard.
Yep.
But the Redemptor Dreadnought, if I have to sell you on this model, why are you looking at Space Marines? It is the coolest thing they've got going for them, in my opinion, is Dreadnoughts, and for me specifically, like tanks, but most people aren't going to care about tanks.
I feel like there's a decent number of people that are like sold on just like the general Space Marine, but yeah, the Redemptor is a nice selling point. It's just like a bigger Space Marine, essentially.
And then there is the two other Dreadnought variants that are currently Primaris, which is the Ballistus Dread, which is the full ranged one. So you've got your las cannon arm, your rocket launcher arm, and it's meant to stay back and be heavy support. And then your Brutalis Dreadnought, which is the I'm going to get up close and you're going to try to stay away from me. And that's the game, because if I get up close, the game ends.
Yeah, but I've still got a couple guns because, you know.
Short range guns that are meltas, so they will delete you. It is the like, hey, you survived getting clawed. Let me just chest blast you with cannons.
Very much a one is ranged, one is melee, which do you want kind of thing, and they're cool.
And then we put it here because it's a walker, but a Phobos unit, the Invictor Tactical Warsuit, the man asking to become a Dreadnought.
Basically.
The guy who cannot wait to get decapitated so he can get put in a coffin.
There's so much armor plating all over this model.
But not over the Space Marine.
He's like, no, I got my Space Marine armor. We're good. It's a walker and it's kind of neat. I accept it.
Okay, I know that Eric has never noticed this about this model. Are you ready to be slightly more upset on air?
Sure.
Check his hip next to his hand.
Hip next to his hand.
They built him a gigantic bolt gun that his robot arm can grab off his hip and fire like a real person.
No, yeah. I mean,
in addition to his gun arm.
Well, obviously.
And his chest guns. And his rockets on top.
wanted to have the option of shooting with both hands, because that's what Space Marines do. But, like, still needed to be able to grab stuff because he's in a suit of armor thing. Yeah, I know it's kind of dumb, but, like...
It's a giant bolter. It's a giant bolter.
Yeah.
They oversized it for his big robot hand. I like it. It's silly. It's not as good as Dreadnoughts by any stretch.
It's silly and it's kind of neat as a, like, I just added this to my army and it looks silly and it's kind of fun.
If you put a Dreadnought sarcophagus in instead, it would be a strict upgrade. But that said, it's fine. All right, it is vehicle time. So the only mounted character that's generic for Space Marines is the Chaplain on bike, which is sick. He has a book chained on top of his bolters on the front of his bike, just rolling into battle with a giant book chained to the top of your bike. He's got his huge bonk stick that hurts like hell in melee. This is such a better look than the Terminator Chaplain.
Yes, I agree. It's kind of weird. Why is there a chaplain on bike?
Because sometimes you gotta play the radio for your bikers so that they can get into combat and hack stuff up in melee with bikes, because that's how 40k works.
That is how 40k works.
Don't think about it.
It's a cool model. It's just a little weird to me.
The weakest part of this model to me is the same feeling I have about Outriders. It's a very fat, square, McDonald's toy looking ass motorcycle.
I actually like the fatter motorcycle look on most things, especially a Space Marine.
It fits Space Marines, but my thing is, like, every other Primaris vehicle has hover tech. All of them. And yet your bikes, your ultra mobile skirmish unit, you didn't give hover to when it would be the most beneficial for them to get over bad terrain.
It's a bit weird.
It's so weird to me, especially when you get into, like, other lore implications of, like, gangers on Necromunda having hover bikes. And you're like, but Space Marines don't. They lost that tech in 30k because reasons?
I mean, they just wanted to look cooler, because everybody knows it looks cooler.
If you look like a Tonka truck.
Yeah, the Chaplain on bike looks good with, like, the rest of the aesthetic. It's just...
The aesthetic is the problem for us, yes. I don't know many people who like Outriders. There will be people in the audience where they're like, that's my shit. But most people are going to be like, I take my Space Marines standing, please. Then there's the challenge mode, which is, can you like the Invader ATV? The actual McDonald's toy turned into Space Marines.
I can't really defend it.
In the Primaris range, I'm pretty sure the ATV is probably just the worst model. Outriders, defensible, not my style. The ATV is an actual McDonald's toy.
Yeah, and, like, that's the thing. Is, like, I can see people enjoying the Outriders. Like, there's a few changes to it, and I could see myself enjoying it and thinking, like, yeah, that's cool. There's nothing with the Invader ATV. Like, there's nothing you could do to it. Like, the core fundamental chassis there is just so dumb.
And we already have an ATV that has hover tech right next to it with the Stormspeeder and all of its variants.
And
if you're new and having trouble figuring out what the difference between the three Stormspeeders are, it's the little gun up front, the one that's coming out of the nose area. That's the difference. They're all the exact same. It is a single kit. Which gun you put on gives it a different name.
Yeah, and then they've got, like, the little top turret rack.
The top turret rack with the deaf kid.
The Stormspeeder's cool.
It's a lot better than the ATV. It's far from my favorite Space Marine vehicle, but, like, aesthetically it fits Space Marines a lot more.
Exactly.
It is a passing grade from me. It's somebody's favorite. Then we've got the Firestrike servo turret, which is a light mounted option.
I don't even know why this is on this list.
It's a Space Marine model.
You're not wrong, but it's so fucking stupid. You were like, the Invader ATV's orders, and I was like, maybe the Firestrike servo turret is in debate with you.
I don't have a problem with it from a look standpoint. It looks like a dude on a turret. It's very unique to the style of Space Marines.
Why do you exist?
Yes. When suppressors take the same gun and fly around with it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It's fair. It's a turret. If you want a turret, you want a Firestrike servo turret. And then because I've got nowhere else to put it, the fortification is the Hammerfall Bunker. It's a bunker with a big rocket launcher thing up top. It's kind of cool looking.
It is kind of cool looking.
Just as a forewarning, if you're new, fortifications tend not to be very good in 40k ever. If they get good, GW nerfs them immediately. They are a casual, looks cool thing that you buy for like a hobby project and to put on the table because it looks neat and you like it. Don't expect this to be the best thing that you own.
Generally, they're bad, and if not, then they can be like okay. But I like the way this bunker looks just because like it's clearly a bunker.
And it's from StarCraft.
It does the bunker thing, and then there's a little bit of extras on it, and it is very much the StarCraft bunker.
Eric's like, I really like the design of this because it looks exactly like something in StarCraft.
Yeah. And I mean, the bunker in StarCraft has saved my life many times, so special place. Tanks.
All right, so we are on the final few here. First up, we've got the Impulsor, which is the troop transport for the Primaris era. It's like a Razorback from the olden days. It's like a half troop transport, half very light tank. I don't know. It's the one that I have the hardest time telling you how cool it is. It's got a pickup bed.
It's tough because I know like neither of us really like the pickup style.
It's fine on like Gene Stealer cults where it's the aesthetic of like random people trying to have a rebellion. It's weird for a military vehicle to be a pickup truck.
It definitely feels out of place, but I can understand that it's an aesthetic that people can enjoy. I get the Impulsor.
It's an APC, but the A doesn't cover any of the people that it's PCing.
Basically. Hey man, you had to let the people in the back shoot their guns as well. It's just fair.
It couldn't do that last edition.
I know. Then we've got the Gladiators.
Yeah, so our main battle tank for Space Marines is the Gladiator. For those of you who are new, if you want to buy an Impulsor and you're just like buying a model, buy the Gladiator. The Impulsor is the Gladiator, but you don't finish building it.
Buy the Gladiator and then stop building it at some point.
The Gladiator kit will give you all of the pieces for the Gladiator and the Impulsor. It is the more finished tank. So don't buy an Impulsor, buy a Gladiator. You just get more out of your deal. I think it's like a $5 difference.
And you get like a bunch of extra stuff, even if you stop building it, which is going to be useful.
So the Gladiator is sick. The Gladiator Lancer has the most normal tank turret to me, which is the one I like the most. Though, shout out to the Reaper, the dual chain cannon look is a vibe. I hate the double las look.
Nah, I think the Valiant looks cool as well for the same reason the chain does.
I do not like double las.
They both have a unique and cool aesthetic, but the Lancer is a fucking tank. Okay.
But yeah, you see your Gladiator, it's like your main battle tank for Space Marines. It is decent for most of its lifespan, at least one variation. I'm pretty sure you can mag it to all three. I've never bothered. If you want a tank, you want a Gladiator. If you want an Impulsor, you also want a Gladiator.
We've got the Repulsor as well.
So the Repulsor was like the first go at the main battle tank. It is bigger than the Gladiator and the Impulsor. You can build it as the Repulsor or the Repulsor Executioner. The Repulsor is like a Gladiator equivalent with a fatter body. The Repulsor Executioner I once saw most accurately described as an inelegant amount of guns.
Yes, and I love it.
The thing is like 80% guns. The Repulsor is also a troop transport, by the way. It is just like the heavy troop transport. It's really like an update to the Land Raider, but the Land Raider was too classic, so they've got to have a new one that will be called Land Raider, and it will be the Land Raider on hover pads.
Something like that, yeah.
It will come out to replace the Land Raider one day, but for right now, the Repulsor and the Repulsor Executioner are like a more modern Land Raider.
I like the Repulsor, but it just doesn't quite hit the same as the Repulsor Executioner, just because, like...
The stupidity. We could have stopped, but we said no.
The amount of guns is very much a, we could have stopped. We said no, then we could have stopped again, and we were like, nah, there's like some guns left in the warehouse.
It's the aggressor of tanks.
Yeah.
The guy who said, no, brother, more.
But where are we gonna fit them?
I think you heard, give me a lot of guns from the armory. What I said was, give me all of the guns from the armory.
And like, it's dumb, but like, I love it to a certain aspect.
It's the fun dumb. It's 40K dumb. It's why you're here.
And the Executioner does that well. Like, you can absolutely fuck up the dumb. We have the Desolation Squad.
We have lots of fucked up dumb in 40K. You get used to it.
Yeah, but like, you can also do it in a way that like is fun and feels right, and the Repulsor Executioner is there for me.
I will always be a proponent of Gladiators. They are my favorite Space Marine tank look. The only correct answer is to ignore the Vindicator's existence.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the only correct answer is the Rhino.
No.
Which, yes it is.
They're free, did you hear?
They are free. We've got some merch that says that.
And on that note, we can be done with this range review. So hopefully this gave you a look into what Space Marines have to offer, at least the generic ones. If you were to check online, we covered like, I think 80 of the models in this. And if you were to click like every Space Marine, it's like 200 something because of all the characters and kits that are only for one specific sub-faction and stuff like that. Space Marines is a special child as far as 40K is concerned. It is one of like 24 factions in this game, and yet it gets treated like it's 23 out of 24 of them.
I mean, it's kind of nice to have options, I guess.
You will never feel like you've had a drought since you could buy a new kit.
That's true.
There will always be something for you to purchase if you go into this army. If you want to go deep onto a single factions, Space Marines is the pick.
Yeah, and I mean, there are enough differences in the styles.
Oh yeah, you can theme your whole army into a single variant of Space Marines and like have a nice cohesive look to it. You can go into all of them. Like in lore, Space Marines put on their armor depending on the mission. They may dress in Phobos for one mission and dress in Gravis for the next depending on what's needed. Like it's armor they're wearing for that day.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense, I guess. And also means that like, you know, there's no lore reason that you can't mix them up.
And you could have 3 things to be the exact same captain in your army that is just him in different outfits depending on what battle he's going to.
The way you said that sounded like we were in like the fashion accessory version.
It's Space Marines. It is fashion accessories.
We're doing the Genshin Impact thing, or you know, whatever it is of, oh, I'm gonna accessorize.
You can't do that in Genshin Impact. It's too controlled for their identity for a single character. The accessorize would be like Path of Exile MTXs.
Yeah, there actually are a lot now.
There's always been a lot. Now there's a quintillion.
Well, I mean, there was always a lot, but they generally had like a similar style. Now you can do anything.
But having Snap recovered from a tangent, I believe we have covered the entire topic. Hopefully it was helpful. This was the first go at this series because it should be more timely for those looking to get into Space Marines. If you have suggestions for future iterations for things that we could change with the format or weave in differently, feel free to give us some comments on this one. I do think this could be a very fun series to do. I just want to know how people feel about it and stuff like that, and we'll probably do a lot of the factions over the next few years. All right, but on that note, we can get out of here.
Sounds good.
Oh wait, while you're down there, also like, comment, subscribe. Bye.
Nailed it.